Welcome back to OtakuDaiKun. Dai here. We're gonna go ahead and finish off the lore of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Because this is a two-part video, if you haven't seen the first part, that's pretty much required. If you're here following that video, then let's get started. "500 years ago, the battle between two Aegises, Mithra and Malos, resulted in the destruction of the Tornin Titan. Malos was presumed dead, while Mithra hid herself away behind a separate personality, Pyra. The hero Adam sealed both Pyra and her weapon away in different places, hoping that one day, a worthy driver would appear to awaken them. He himself presumably died, and was put to rest in the spirit crucible Elpis. He lived a normal human's lifespan, whereas other participants in the Aegis War found means of extending their lives for centuries. The Blade Jin consumed Laura's heart to live on as a flesh-eater. Victims like Mikhail were forced to merge with blades to become Blade Eaters, paving the way for Amalthus himself to become a Blade Eater through a piece of Haze's core crystal. He was the one man who saw Elysium, shattering his idealized perception of the world and its architect. His hatred for humanity resonated with Malos, awakening the Aegis with a similar pessimism. While Malos's hatred manifested in a desire to destroy the world, Amalthus's manifested in a need to control it. Under his rule, the Indoline Praetorium becomes Alrest's most influential nation by implementing a system by which all drivers must officially register their blades. This gives the Praetorium considerable power over military affairs, helping to mediate conflict between nations. Despite this, tensions still arise. The Kingdom of Uriah and the Empire of Morardain are constantly on the brink of war over territorial disputes. While Titans create core crystals, which in turn become more Titans, very few of these Titans are large enough to house entire nations. Morardain's Titan especially is slowly but surely dying. Looking toward the future, the Empire yearns to claim new lands, using military might to pressure other nations. They take over and colonize the Titan of Gormott, officially designating it the Gormott Province. In modern times, the Empire is ruled over by Emperor Niall, an obvious descendant of Hugo from the Aegis War. His biological cousin, Morag, serves as Special Inquisitor. Morag is the inheritor of Brigid, and by channeling Brigid's spells, she has earned the nickname Flamebringer. While protecting the young emperor, she carries out various missions for the sake of her country. Niall himself is the modern driver of Aegean. Adam, prior to his death, is recognized as a genuine hero by the people of Uriah. The surviving Tornins eventually settle on the Titan Genbu, but without Adam to lead them, they feud over how to proceed. Adam's loyal followers insist that humans, blades, and titans should all work to coexist in harmony, but a separate faction emerges claiming that blades and titans should be subservient to humans. While they disagree with Adam's central philosophy, they rely on his namesake for political stability. As such, the Kingdom of Tantal is established by Tornin refugees, falsely claiming to carry Adam's bloodline. They gain the support of Indol through annual offerings of core chips, items that can be used to power up a blade's abilities. In general, it is in Amalthus's best interest to keep humans from visiting the World Tree like he once did. As such, he entrusts the Kingdom of Tantal with a device called the Omega Fetter. It is the catalyst Mithra once used to control her artifice Ophion. In Tantal's hands, the Omega Fetter is used to order Ophion to guard the base of the World Tree, creating a great void that renders Elysium inaccessible. In modern times, Tantal's crown prince is Zeke von Genbu, a comedically charismatic young man with a thirst for adventure. While Tantal implements a strict isolationist policy, Zeke ignores his father's will in favor of visiting other nations alongside his blade Pandoria and adorable pet Turturs. While not quite revered as a blade like Brigid, it appears Pandoria has a strong connection to the Titan Genbu, allowing her to relay orders to it. At the age of 15, Zeke is disowned by his father for breaking isolation, banishing the young prince from his own kingdom. Despite Pandoria's affinity to Genbu, she cherishes Zeke and accompanies him on all of his escapades. On one of their journeys, Zeke finds himself fatally wounded in an attack from bandits hoping to steal Pandoria's core crystal. She tries to carry his weary body to safety, but she too collapses from weakness. Surprisingly, they are saved by Amalthus, who brings them back to Indol and uses a part of Pandoria's core crystal to revive Zeke. In other words, Zeke is made a Blade Eater as a matter of necessity. Indebted to the Praetorium, Zeke and Pandoria become special envoys for Indol, taking orders from Amalthus directly. It is a shocking development to come from a man who views human nature with disdain. In a sense, however, Amalthus saved Zeke while remembering how his own mother saved him. Nearly everyone assumed Malos died at the end of the Aegis War, but in truth, he survived with severe damage to his core crystal. Having lost access to most of his powers, Malos wanders Allrest while contemplating his own purpose. He realizes that his hatred for humanity may just be a projection of Amalthus's feelings, and he curses the architect for designing him this way. It is at this point that Malos comes across Jin, who has been wallowing in depression ever since Laura's death. While they were once enemies, the two agree about the cruel design of blades who are destined to either lose their memories or consume their drivers to survive. Lacking a purpose in life, the two conspire to one day reach Elysium and kill the architect out of spite. In memory of the Titan that was destroyed, they form an organization called Torna, traveling Allrest with their ship and base of operations, the Monoceros. For his own use, Malos resonates with his own blade, Sever. Having experienced great hardship in life, Mikhail joins Torna, sharing similar frustrations about the world. Being a Blade Eater, he is able to survive the many years following the Aegis War. Similarly, Torna recruits different Flesh Eaters to its ranks. Akos and Petroka, for instance, are the blades of two siblings who consumed their drivers when they died. Amalthus secretly uses Flesh Eaters for his own purposes, but publicly, Indol considers Flesh Eaters criminals. For their crime, Akos and Petroka are transferred to Indol for execution, but are rescued by Jin en route. The two join Torna, supporting its cause by awakening their own respective blades. After becoming Flesh Eaters, Akos feels as though Petroka is his sister, though this sentiment is unrequited. Instead, Petroka is quite abrasive, with a bad attitude toward Akos, and even Mikhail, who is clearly attracted to her. Torna's final recruit is a Flesh Eater named Nia. Initially, Nia was awoken as a blade of a wealthy lord in Gormat province. This lord had a sickly daughter, and for a time, Nia and the daughter acted as sisters. She was treated as one of the family, being taught on how to act like a proper lady. Sadly, the daughter's illness would not abate, and so the lord spent his entire fortune looking for a cure. This hurt more than it helped, forcing them to become drifters. The harsh lifestyle only accelerated his daughter's death. The lord, desperate to fill the void in his heart, ordered Nia to consume his daughter and act on her behalf. From then on, Nia referred to her driver as father until he too passed away, leaving behind a spare core crystal. As a Flesh Eater, she was able to awaken the core and bond with its blade, Dromark. With only each other to rely on, Nia and Dromark wander Allrest as fugitives of the Praetorium. Soon enough, they are captured by Indol, only surviving because Jin rescues them as well. Unlike her Tornan partners, Nia is compassionate and only follows the group out of obligation, having nowhere else to go. Ashamed of her status as a Flesh Eater, Nia hides her core crystal and pretends to be an ordinary driver from Gormat. All of these developments occur during the 500 years following Torna's destruction. The organization Torna strives to ascend the World Tree, but cannot proceed because it is guarded by Ophion and the Great Void. With his original power, this would not be a threat to Malos, but in his current state, he simply cannot power his way through. Disabling Ophion isn't his only goal either. Malos wants to restore his former power by using the other Aegis to regenerate his damaged core crystal. To that end, he discovers the sunken ship where Pyro was sealed away. But in order to break the seal, he needs someone who was born in the Leftharian archipelago where Adam settled after the war. Enter Rex, a young boy orphaned in Fonset Village. When Rex was only 2 years old, he and his mother mysteriously washed up on the village's shore. Shortly upon arrival, his mother passed away, and his father's corpse was located elsewhere in the archipelago. The parents were buried in the Oratory Knoll Cemetery, and Corin, a resident of the village, decided to raise Rex as though he were her own child. Thanks to her, Rex had a proper childhood, and by the age of 15, he became a professional salvager of the Cloud Sea. Rex is close friends with the Titan Azurda, whom Adam charged with protecting the village. Lovingly, Rex calls Azurda Gramps, and lives on his back while diving into the Cloud Sea in search of treasure. From Azurda's back, Rex is able to witness other Titans die and sink into the sea. The fear that massive Titans will inevitably die creates the greatest political strain between Alrest's nations. Regardless, he refuses to salvage weapons, and instead makes a meager living by selling his loot at the Argentum Trade Guild. He is well known by the Nopon traders there, and because of this, the guild's chairman, Bana, recommends him when Malos' posse comes by in search of a Leftharian native. With the chance to make more money than ever, Rex accepts the job before even meeting his client. Jin, Malos, and Nia underestimate his skills as a salvager, but take him along because they only need him to unlock Pyra's seal. Naive to the trouble he's become involved with, Rex watches as the salvage team raises Pyra's ship. He accompanies Torna inside, navigating the ship to the door they need him to open. Doing as instructed, Rex breaks the seal, opening the chamber with Pyra and Stasis on the other end. Fascinated, he approaches Numa's core crystal despite being told to stay put. To stop him, Jin comes up from behind and stabs Rex, killing him in cold blood. Nia is shocked to learn that her own allies are so cruel, and only reluctantly continues to carry out their plan. As Torna extracts Pyra's coffin from the ship, her consciousness resonates with Rex. The two meet within Pyra's vision of Elysium. Given Rex is effectively dead, Pyra presents him with an offer. In exchange for helping her reach Elysium in the real world, she will use half her core crystal to save him. Rex will become her driver, and the two will share the same life force. Any injuries to one will also be inflicted to the other. Instantly enamored with this gentle and caring woman, Rex accepts her proposal. Back on the surface, Malos carries Pyra's sleeping body and orders Nia to slaughter everyone they'd hired to silence witnesses. She protests, and before she's forced to follow orders, Pyra awakens from her slumber, resurrecting Rex in a blaze of glory. They fight against Malos and his blade sever, giving the salvagers a chance to escape. When Malos gets the upper hand, Nia chooses to betray Torna by assisting Rex. He, in turn, saves her from falling into the Cloud Sea. The Monoceros prepares to fire at them, but the assault is interrupted when Azurda flies in to rescue them. Jin watches as Azurda takes Rex, Pyra, Nia, and Dromark to safety. He refuses to pursue them, complacent with Pyra's awakening. With how long they've been preparing, this seems to only be a minor setback. Azurda is heavily injured, making an emergency landing on Gormat. At first, he appears to die, dissolving before Rex's crying eyes. Luckily, instead of passing on, Azurda merely returns to his larval state as a Titan. He can no longer carry anyone, but he is nonetheless able to survive by riding along in the pit of Rex's helmet. Nia reveals that she is a Gormati, and while she's willing to escort Rex to the town of Torrigoth, she plans on parting shortly after. During the night, Pyra and Azura converse as old acquaintances. She definitely seeks Elysium, but also acknowledges she must still defeat Malos and Jin. What she doesn't tell Azurda is that, deep down, Pyra and Mithra want to reach Elysium so that the Architect can end them. Regardless of what Adam hoped for, she fears her powers do nothing but bring ruin. In Torrigoth, Nia witnesses herself on a wanted poster. She may have betrayed Torna, but Gormat still recognizes her as part of a terrorist organization. Fortunately, the poster looks nothing like her. The party passes by a Mor Ardain recruitment station, where they witness the frightening consequences of being rejected by a core crystal. Rex's bond with Pyra is very different from a conventional driver and blade. They're attacked by Ardinian soldiers who discover that Rex is not a registered driver with the Praetorium, and while ordinary soldiers are no match for the Aegis, things change when Bridget arrives. She's so strong that, even when Morag is off on other duties, she can still fight independently. During their battle, Nia and Dromark are taken captive. They beg Rex and Pyra to escape without them, but Brigid won't allow it. Suddenly, a strange projectile ruptures a pipe that douses Brigid in water. This allows Rex and Pyra to escape, albeit reluctantly. On the run, they are saved by a peculiar Nopon named Tora. He leads them to his home, which is hidden away in the underbelly of Torgoth. He's an inventor, and one of his creations was what helped them out against Brigid. His specialty is the development of artificial blades. Even as a child, he, his father Tatazo, and his grandfather Soso lacked the ability to resonate with blades. Tor himself tried such a resonance, causing him to suffer a 3-day nosebleed. If they couldn't properly awaken blades of their own, this Nopon family decided to create an artificial blade named Lila that they could pair with. Their efforts bore fruit, earning the attention of rivals. Professor Soso's assistant, Mui Mui, sought to profit off of Lila's development, conspiring with Chairman Bana of the Trade Guild and Morardane's Senator Roderick to seize the secrets of artificial blade development for military use. Tora's family just wanted to overcome their mortal limitations and finally possess a blade, so when a disguised Mui Mui broke into the lab with an armed force of Turkins, they were taken aback. Soso was shot in the confrontation, and so Tatazo entrusted Tora with blueprints while staying behind to let his son escape. Tora fled to Torgoth, uncertain whether his father was alive or dead. Not knowing how to proceed, Tora has been hiding in his lab, trying to finish his father's work by creating Poppy, an artificial blade based on Tora's own preferences. Poppy's development is nearly complete, and he only needs some missing parts. In exchange for Rex's help acquiring said parts, Tora vows to have Poppy help them rescue Nia from captivity. A deal is made, and Poppy is awakened, fully demonstrating Tora's maid fetish. Nia and Dromark are held in jail at an Ardanian battleship, where Morag inquires about Rex and the Aegis. The party chooses to sneak into the ship from below, tethering their way up with Poppy's enormous strength. Despite her supple looks, Pyra is extraordinarily heavy and is embarrassed to need Poppy's help being lifted into the battleship. They are led to believe that Nia and Dromark will be executed, but it turns out this is merely a trap meant to lure in the Aegis. Thus, as Rex's crew saves Nia and Dromark, they are ambushed outside the warship by Morag and Brigid. Morag is weary of the past and knows of the destruction Mithra caused 500 years ago. Hoping to prevent another disaster, Morag aims to capture Pyra, but Rex mistakes this as an attempt to weaponize her. The two sides are forced to fight, misunderstanding each other's intentions. Even though Rex has Pyra's aid in combat, he's an inexperienced driver who can't take full advantage of her capabilities. This makes it easy for Morag and her blade to dominate the battle. Rex, in a desperate attempt to escape, instructs Pyra and Poppy to attack a nearby water tower. With its foundation melted, Poppy topples the tower, spilling water over Brigid once more. Rex and Pyra are given the chance to unleash a finishing blow, but they have no intention of actually killing Morag. Instead, their attack creates a diversion through which the party finally escapes Torgoth. Even though Nia's been rescued, she still plans to leave on her own, but after Rex declares his optimistic wish to reach Elysium, she decides to tag along. Luckily for them, Gormott is the closest Titan to the World Tree. They just need to secure a ship that isn't regulated by Morardain. Tora remembers a family friend named Umon, who owns a shipyard on the other side of the Titan. With Umon's aid, Rex and company can set sail toward the World Tree, naively unaware of Ophion and the Great Void. Pyra immediately recognizes Ophion's presence, and despite her attempts to calm the artifice, Ophion is out of her control. They turn their ship around to flee the area, only to find themselves swallowed up by the Titan Uriah. While Uriah is home to the Kingdom of Uriah, it also houses Garfont Village, a quaint town of mercenaries founded by a stoic figure named Vandam. Originally named Aquila Perine Sol Esterial, Vandam was a noble who once fought alongside Minoth, Amalthus's flesh-eater. The past 500 years have not been kind to Minoth. His body has decayed considerably, and he now lives as an old man named Cole. Vandam is a caring leader who knows the sorrow of losing his own son. Along with his windblade Rock, he is an inspiration to the people of Garfont and hates Torna for killing many of his fellow drivers. Upon hearing rumors that the Aegis is awakened, Vandam correctly assumes Rex is her new driver. He sees potential in the boy and takes him in as a father figure. Under Vandam's tutelage, Rex learns more about what it takes for a driver and Blade to truly work as a team. Now that Rex has taken on such a responsibility, he has to accept the fact that conflict is inevitable. If he wants to protect the people closest to him, he's gonna need to stand up and fight. Rex and Vandam bond while taking on jobs, until Akos and his blade Obrona attack the village. Rex and Pyra fail to subdue Akos, reminding Rex of his own weakness. Being a driver is especially hard on them because the two feel each other's pain. If not for Vandam, their journey would have ended here. Luckily, Vandam proves strong enough to chase Akos away, and continues to teach his young pupil about the true nature of blades and their life cycles. As an old friend of Minoff, or Cole as he goes by now, Vandam offers to take Rex's party to the Urian capital. Presumably, Cole knows a way to reach Elysium. Along the way, they encounter Zeke and Pandoria, who play the role of antagonists under orders from Amalthus. They are tasked with testing Rex's potential as the new driver of the Aegis. That said, their efforts appear to be more comedic than evaluative. Rex's party reaches the Urian capital, Fonsamima, which is struggling with a food shortage due to conflict with Morardain. The citizens have their food rationed by the government, and not long after arriving, the party notices a soldier stealing rations from a young girl named Iona. Rex steps in and protects the girl, which is convenient because she happens to be under the care of Cole, the man they're looking for. They find Cole at a small theater in the city, where they proceed to watch a play glorifying Adam's heroism during the Aegis War. Rather than being upset to see a play about her own past, Pyra is instead impressed by the stage effects. Cole hears about Rex's desire to reach Elysium, and remarks how he knows of a man who once climbed the World Tree. He even offers to introduce Rex to this man. Sadly, Cole's body is at its limit, and while the party is sleeping in an inn overnight, he is approached by Malos and Akos. They offer to extend Cole's lifespan in exchange for selling out Pyra. While he refuses, Iona overhears the conversation and, desperate to save her guardian, is tricked into being Malos's hostage. The next morning, Rex is told to bring Pyra to the Olethro Playhouse, the location where Adam first awakened Mithra. To save Iona, the party does as instructed, and winds up fighting Malos and Akos. Even while weakened, Malos is a powerful opponent with his blade Sever. To make things worse, Akos can disrupt the area's ether flow, incapacitating the party's blades. Vandam resists to the bitter end, impaling himself with rock scythes to continue channeling his blade's power. He defends against Malos and Akos, hoping to make way for Rex and Pyra to escape. However, Rex stubbornly refuses to abandon his mentor. Vandam dies in battle, with Rex in the same danger he started in. Malos is confident in his victory, announcing Torna's plan of eradicating humanity. He justifies his ambition by citing the war between Uriah and Morardain. Pyra is unable to protect Rex, and even though she's afraid of her true power, she's willing to risk it for his sake. In an act of desperation, Pyra awakens Mithra, the side of herself that she originally meant to keep hidden. Mithra is unaffected by Akos' suppression, and easily turns the tide of battle with beams of light sent down from her siren above. Rex's newfound agility and foresight allow him to push back his opponents and counterattack. Rex and Mithra combine their efforts to cast Sacred Arrow, which barrages Malos and Akos with destructive light. The arrows overpower Sever and Aprona, forcing their drivers to retreat. While Rex's party wins the fight, it has come at a tremendous cost. It is tradition for drivers to be buried where they die, so Rex's party holds a ceremony at what's left of the Olethro ruins. Surprised by the events that transpired, everyone interrogates Pyra regarding her hidden powers, and the blonde girl who wields them. Mithra appears again, complaining that if Rex weren't so weak, she wouldn't have had to show herself at all. She's glad he's safe, but won't admit as such to his face. In a fit, she turns back into Pyra, forcing her to deal with explaining things. Unable to hide anymore, Pyra unveils her history with Malos. She apologizes for Mithra's hostile behavior and worries about what Rex might think of them, but such worries are sated by Rex's overwhelming optimism. In that regard, he seems similar to Adam. Because Rex still hopes to visit Elysium, Cole reveals that he is a flesh eater, and that his driver is the same person who once climbed the world tree. He gifts Rex his blade weapon, and tasks the boy with finding his driver in Indol. To honor Vandam, Cole promises to produce a play about his heroic sacrifice. The party plans to travel to Indol by going through the Argentum Trade Guild and Mor Ardain. As a guild member, Rex can negotiate free transportation between Titans. They make it as far as Argentum, staying the night at the guild's inn. During the night, Mithra emerges and finds herself unconsciously slipping into Rex's bed. Come morning, she is shocked to be sharing a bed with a young boy, and first blames him for the mistake. Embarrassed, she pelts Rex with various objects before storming out of the room. This is apparently common for Mithra. Rex follows to find Pyra, who apologizes for what happened. They both truly like Rex, but show different levels of maturity about it. Before the party can board another ship, a young Gormati child steals Rex's bag, which happens to hold Rock's core crystal. He means to awaken Rock as his own blade, but worries about whether it's something Vandam would have wanted. At the very least, he can't let Rock get stolen by a pickpocket. The party tracks down this child, Reese, and discovers that he and a group of children want to awaken Rock to seek revenge on bandits who sacked their home, Cordell Village. Hearing this, Rex vows to defeat the bandits on their behalf. In the spirit of helping the children, Rex awakens Rock, and is comforted to hear that, even though Rock doesn't remember Vandam, he would be honored to carry on his previous driver's will. The party makes quick work of the bandits, and sets the kids up with stable work in Argentum. Mor Ardain is just another ride away, and when the party arrives, they encounter Mui Mui. Unaware that Mui Mui is the one who shot his grandfather, Tora trusts the guy and accepts directions to a good inn to stay at. The inn has a hot spring, and while the girls are bathing, Mithra spots Nia's core crystal and discovers that she's a blade. Nia asks Mithra to keep this information from Rex, and the two agree to share the secret. During the night, everyone's sleep is interrupted by a loud explosion. Looking into the matter, they discover an artificial blade, similar to Poppy, attacking Argentum soldiers. Tora is surprised to find that this blade is none other than Lila, the prototype his father and grandfather were working on. Lila disappears into the night, leaving Tora confused as Morag and Brigid come to investigate. The timing is inconvenient because they assume Poppy is the one behind the attacks. They battle once again, more fierce than ever, but Rex sees no reason to fight. Thus, while he doesn't hold back, he refuses to kill them either. This is fortunate, because the attack is interrupted when Nira, a Nopon from the guild's intelligence division, confirms that while Poppy looks like the culprit, she is not who Morag is looking for. Humbled by her mistake, Morag asks Rex to help her investigate the truth. Since Tora knows what parts are needed to construct artificial blades, he is able to trace purchases in the capital to an old factory. On the way to this factory, the party runs into Zeke again, who challenges them to another fight. It is shortly lived and equally silly. At the factory, Tora discovers that his father Tatazo is being held captive, forced to construct artificial blades for Mui Mui. These blades are to be sold through Bana at the guild, not just to the military, but also to Torna. Mui Mui has lured Tora to the factory, hoping to extract Poppy's ether furnace, which is based on his grandfather's more advanced design. Rex and the team are easily able to oppose Mui Mui and his Turkan conspirators, but face difficulty when Bana forces Lila to attack them. Poppy and Lila duel one another in the factory, and just as Poppy is about to deliver a finishing strike, Tatazo jumps in the way, begging for Lila to be spared. Showing mercy, Tora and Poppy give Lila the chance to break free of Bana's control mechanism. Unable to rely on manipulation, Bana pilots Rosa, a much larger artificial blade. Rosa proves formidable, knocking Poppy out of the area. Away from the fight, Lila is on the verge of death and asks Poppy to save the artificial blades being created in the factory. To do so, she offers up her ether furnace, which Poppy can implement to upgrade her form from Poppy Alpha to Poppy QT. In this new form, Poppy subdues Rosa, allowing the party to force Bana to either give up making artificial blades or to be arrested by Morag. Just as Bana is about to comply, negotiations are interrupted when Mikhail and Petroka show up. Despite the two's quirky romantic tension, they prove to be a dangerous foe, a small army of their own. Mithra is unable to fight to her full strength, as Siren's aerial blasts are too dangerous to use while they're still inside the factory. Thus, the party plans to push Mikhail and Petroka back to an exposed opening in the ceiling. Morag and Brigid aid in this effort, manipulating the flow of battle in their favor. With a clear shot, Mithra calls upon Siren, which destroys Petroka's blade. Enraged, Petroka tries to retaliate, but is suddenly subdued by a strong repressive force. Fan Lenorn, the new identity of Haze, appears on behalf of the Indoline Praetorium. Her ability to restrain blades is so strong that Mikhail is left with no choice but to take Petroka and flee. Ultimately, both Bana and the Tornin pair get away. Fan Lenorn introduces herself and informs Rex that her driver, Amalthus, seeks an audience with him. Conveniently, Amalthus is the very person Rex needs to meet anyway. Meeting the Praetor is a good opportunity for Morag as well, so she and Brigid come along. While Rex and his crew travel to Indol, Torna investigates the Titan of Temperantia. Once known as the land of the Judicians, predecessors of the Indoline Praetorium, damage to the Titan during the Aegis War has rendered Temperantia a demilitarized zone between Morardain and Uriah. While this land is riddled with craters from Mithra's Siren, there are also remnants of Judician technology, specifically Titan weaponry. Akos discovers that Morardain has been extracting these weapons, prompting Jin to visit for himself. Meanwhile, reaching Indol proves troublesome, and Fan Lenorn recommends that Rex's party dock in the Leftharian archipelago and cross on foot to the other side. Given this is Rex's home Titan, he offers to escort everyone to Fonset Village, where he grew up. At the village, the group meets his foster mother Corin, who shows them hospitality and a place to stay. Pyra, who has become very close to Rex over this journey, is honored to learn about his upbringing. When he takes them to the Oratory Knoll Cemetery, where his birth parents are buried, Pyra is deeply humbled. Rex and Pyra speak to the gravesite as though both parents were listening, even after death, relaying their mission to find Elysium. Hearing about how much Rex has suffered in the past, however, makes Pyra wonder if she'll only bring him more pain in the future. Just when the party is about to board a ship from Leftharia to Indol, they encounter Zeke and Pandoria yet again. Zeke tests Rex one last time in battle, finally showing his true strength as a driver. Morag, who stays out of the fight, recognizes Zeke as the Crown Prince of Tantal. With his identity laid bare, he confesses he too is an envoy from Indol. He intended to reveal this after properly fighting the group, but his poor luck kept postponing things. Misfortune rears its head again as Zeke leans against a guardrail. It gives way, causing him to fall into the sea. Despite this, Zeke is resourceful enough to rendezvous with Rex in Indol. The Titan's capital is home to many war refugees. While the Praetorium appears to welcome and accommodate these refugees, many of them blame it for more or less steering the political landscape by controlling the distribution of core crystals across Allrest. The party is given a chance to rest in the Praetorium, and during this time, Pyra continues to worry about her influence on Rex. Brigid, who values knowing about her own past through keeping a journal passed down through the Empire, encourages Pyra to divulge the truth about 500 years ago. Failing to do so will only strain the bond she's been making with Rex thus far. At long last, Rex meets Amalthus, and they discuss the notion of reaching Elysium. Rex is weary of Amalthus's tone, sensing the same disdain for humanity that Malos has. Before plotting a course of action, Amalthus requests a private conversation with Pyra to discuss their past. Mithra emerges, since she was the one in control back then. She finds it odd that Amalthus would approve of anyone climbing the World Tree. He remarks that he wants to believe Rex may be able to reach the Architect and save their world. What he doesn't disclose is that, with Malos active again, he thinks Rex and Mithra can be used to combat Malos. After all, while keeping Elysium guarded is in his best interest to maintain control over Allrest, Amalthus can't possibly let Malos disturb that control. Before the matter can be properly discussed, however, Indol gets word that Morardain is attacking Orion troops in Temperantia. Confused by this, Morag confronts Senator Roderick of the Empire, who insists he didn't authorize any sort of offensive. Rex assumes that Torna is involved, and sets out to resolve the conflict. Zeke, on behalf of the Praetorium, accompanies the party. Sure enough, the Ardanians haven't actually attacked Uriah. Instead, Jin has infiltrated the Ardanian excavation site and is using the Titan weapons there to provoke war between the two nations. In Temperantia, the party finds Jin and leaps onto the back of a Judician Titan to subdue it. Jin fights the group atop the beast and argues with Mithra about his motive. He blames Mithra for Laura's death and remarks on the rough lot in life that blades have been given. Behind his mask, he reveals he's a blade, his core crystal red like blood. Fan Lenorn uses her power to try and weaken Jin, but because he's a flesh eater, her efforts are ineffective. Instead, Jin takes pity on Fan, as she has no idea that Amalthus was responsible for killing Laura 500 years ago. She cannot remember being Hayes, and is instead stuck serving a former enemy. Promising to set Fan free, Jin stabs her, with his sword destroying her core crystal. The blade formerly known as Hayes permanently dies. Just as he prepares to wipe out the party, Jin's core crystal starts acting strangely, weakening him. Akos arrives and escorts Jin to safety, leaving Rex to reflect on how pathetic he still is as a driver. This incident in Temperantia drastically elevates the tension between Uriah and Morardain. Thus, to establish a ceasefire, Queen Rakura of Uriah and Emperor Niall of Ardain are gathered along with a council represented by Tantal, Argentum, and Mithra. Rakura is reluctantly convinced that the Temperantian attack was not the Ardanians' fault. Rather, what everyone should be focusing on is Malos and Torna. Malos may be weaker now, but reaching Elysium could make him a tremendous threat once again. Amalthus admits that he's had the Great Void intentionally keeping the World Tree unreachable, but now it might be better to revoke that restriction and find Elysium before Malos can. Fan Lenorn, having been considered a goddess for the Praetorium, is given a state funeral. Mithra is perplexed to see that Fan's blade body is still intact, as opposed to returning to its core crystal. That said, she doesn't suspect that this is because Amalthus is a blade eater. Finally agreeing to lift the restriction on the World Tree, Amalthus instructs Rex to venture to the Kingdom of Tantal and obtain the Omega Fetter, the item which can control Artifice Ophion. Zeke, under orders from Indol, has a proper excuse to return to the kingdom that banished him. Before the party can head out, however, the Nopon Nira relays that Bana, who had escaped before, is now attempting to assassinate the Orion Queen. Morag insists they look into this plot and prevent its fruition. At first, Rex explores a false lead, suspecting that Turkan chefs may have poisoned the food served at the meeting. In truth, these Turkans are world-class chefs who did no such thing. While distracted, Bana makes his move, attacking Rakura in an upgraded form of Rosa called Giga Rosa. Luckily, Rex's party arrives in time and destroys the weapon. In a last-ditch effort, Bana has Giga Rosa self-destruct, and to save everyone, Emperor Niall has his blade Aegeon put up a protective barrier. Niall is injured in the blast, and Aegeon is reduced to his core crystal. With the Emperor on the verge of death, Nia has Dromark distract everyone while she unveils her blade form and heals Niall. With none the wiser, Nia saves the Emperor's life, and his heroic sacrifice settles the tension between nations. In the wake of this assassination plot, Morag is desperate to continue protecting Niall, but he insists she's better suited to traveling with Rex. Deeming himself unfit to be a driver, he gives Morag Aegeon's core crystal and promises to stay out of trouble so she can join Rex without worry. Queen Rakura sees this decision as an indication that they ought to focus their efforts on stopping Malos and preventing another disaster like the Aegis War. Genbu, the titan on which Tantal is located, is often found submerged beneath the Cloud Sea. This is one layer of the nation's isolationist policy. Luckily, Pandoria is able to call Genbu to the surface. For the most part, Tantal is a frozen nation covered in snow, a consequence of giving their core chips to Indol. After traversing the harsh climate, Rex and his friends reach Theosir, Tantal's capital, and meet Tantal's king Eulogimenos. What is supposed to be a diplomatic greeting becomes a trap as the king imprisons the party and takes Pyra captive. He is able to restrain their blades by disrupting the surrounding ether. Unlike other nations, who look toward the Aegis as a means of defeating Malos, Tantal deems Pyra too dangerous and plans to execute her to protect Allrest. In jail, the party notices that Poppy isn't affected by the lack of ether. Her own ether furnace powers itself, so she is able to break everyone out of prison. Below the palace, Tantal's king aims to kill Pyra through the use of an Ether Accelerator. He reminds Pyra that, following the Aegis War, she too found herself too powerful to keep around. She wouldn't have been sealed away otherwise. For much of this journey, Pyra's wanted this very fate, but now that she loves Rex, she wishes to live. Coming to the rescue, Zeke stalls the accelerator long enough for Poppy to ruin its aim. With Pyra safe, the king wonders why she allowed herself to be reactivated in the first place. Pyra lets the king know that Adam never intended to seal the Aegis away forever, and was instead hoping that someday, humans and blades would find harmony again, and would thereafter be worthy of her. The king's attempt to protect Allrest has only created more danger for his people. The Ether Accelerator, while it missed Pyra, was deadly enough to pierce through the Titan and strike the Omega Fetter, breaking Pandoria's ability to control Genbu. In response, Genbu begins a deep dive into the Cloud Sea, moving so fast that after 3 hours, it'll implode from the pressure. To save Tantal, the party now has to repair the Fetter in time. They rush to Genbu's head, traversing through an old battlefield along the way. Fortunately, since the Omega Fetter originally belonged to Mithra, she is able to repair it and halt the Titan's descent. Stepping out of the shrine, however, the group is attacked by Akos, Mikhail, and Petroka. With a group of strong allies, Rex's party is able to fight them off. The battle goes in their favor until Jin and Malos arrive as backup. Jin specifically has abilities he obtained from becoming a flesh eater, such as light speed movement of his own. Rex and Mithra aren't in sync enough for Mithra to quite match that speed yet, so they are unable to beat him, even with Foresight and Siren's beams. Even worse, Jin's assault causes Mithra's sword to shatter, while a flock of artificial blades pin down the rest of the party. Torna demands both Mithra and the Omega Fetter, and Jin acts on this by attempting to steal the core crystal in Rex's chest. Once again desperate to save Rex, Pyra emerges and has Siren target her position. She knows that Torna needs her alive, so she threatens to kill herself unless Rex and the others are spared. Jin accepts this proposal when Pyra promises to open the path to Elysium for him. Looking at how injured and weary Pyra is, Jin once again blames Rex for his incompetence before leaving with her and the Fetter in tow. This comes as a huge blow to Rex's confidence. Admitting he can never defeat Jin, he considers abandoning their quest for Elysium. Bridget and Nia are insulted by the idea, considering how much pain Pyra has put herself through to get this far. This whole time, Pyra has been doubting whether she should still be by his side, worried that she might cause him to suffer. As the party lectures him harshly, Rex is called for to visit Tantal's king again. Eulogimenos finds it odd that an Aegis like Mithra could be defeated by Jin, and suspects her potential is being limited. Tantalese history speaks of a third Aegis sword, Pyra and Mithra's true sword, being sealed away in the Leftharian archipelago. Back at Rex's home of Fonset Village, Azurda reveals that Adam originally asked him to guard the sword from outsiders. He's held back on this information thus far because, over 5 centuries, various Leftharians have attempted to navigate the Spirit Crucible Elpis, never to return. After observing Rex all this time, however, Azurda is willing to tell him the truth and let him enter the temple. One significant challenge of the Spirit Crucible is that its air has particles that sap blades of their strength. This ensures that drivers cannot rely on their blades too much for help. It is a trial for them, after all, not the blades. The theory makes sense, but similar to Rex, Zeke's life force is tied to Pandoria's. Thus, when she is weakened, he is weakened. Nonetheless, they proceed deeper into the caverns, and Nia uses this trek to tell Rex about her past, conveniently omitting the fact that she's a blade. At the heart of Elpis, the party is forced to fight a swarm of dark phantasms in Adam's shape. They prove too strong, nearly killing Rex in the process. Nia refuses to lose another person dear to her, and ignores her shame as a flesh eater to save his life. Revealing her true form as a blade, she heals the party, allowing them to overcome the phantasms. Nia declares her love for Rex, but he misinterprets the sentiment, naively declaring he loves not just her, but everyone else he's been traveling with. Having completed the trial, Rex finds himself in the same field where he met Pyra, only this time, he is speaking to Adam. Here, Adam teaches Rex what it truly means to be Mithra's driver. This true Aegis sword isn't the miracle tool it's renowned to be. Rather, what's most important is that Rex accept and carry the burden of her fears. She's afraid of her own powers, and Adam admits he was too during the Aegis War. Rex, on the other hand, has the will to protect Mithra, and by bearing the burden of her fears, he will finally be her true driver. This vision fades, and Rex is able to take hold of the Aegis sword. Shortly after grasping the weapon, however, it dissolves into nothing. Even so, Rex is confident in his path and hopes to rescue Pyra. Through visions, he senses that Pyra is being kept at the cliffs of Moritha. There, Malos reaches into Pyra's core crystal in an effort to restore his own. He sifts through her memories of Rex, ignoring her plea to stop. Her efforts to keep him out fail, and through the data he collects, Malos learns of Artifice Ion, the failsafe meant to destroy the world in an emergency. Malos feels that since the Architect won't use Ion, it's up to him to do so. With his core restored, Malos takes the Omega Fetter and calls upon Artifice Ophion. The Fetter is supposed to control Ophion, but it appears to ignore the Fetter and attack Malos anyway. Returned to his former strength, however, Malos has no trouble smacking Ophion into submission. Before long, Rex and his friends reach the cliffs and fight to save Pyra. They encounter Malos first, and he assumes Pyra must have died while he was extracting data from her, but Rex can sense otherwise. Initially, Malos proves to be too powerful. His destructive might can fully eliminate anything within his dark spheres. Thankfully, Nia is able to counter this with her healing. What Malos destroys gets restored right after. The fight continues, and Malos begins to outpace Nia. The true nature of her healing powers happens to be the ability to alter cell replication, and using it to its full extent allows her to infect Malos and drive him off a ledge. Further up, the party finds Jin guarding an unconscious Pyra, and Malos catches up right after. Despite Rex's attempts to wake Pyra from her slumber, she does not respond. He blames himself and his inability to understand Pyra and Mithra's feelings. He claimed to walk the same path as them, but was ultimately acting on his own curiosity. This time, he is fully committed to fulfilling his promise to take them to Elysium for their sake. Nia has been critical in the fight so far, but Jin's control of ice can render her frozen in absolute zero. Without her, Rex's party stands no chance, and their attempts to fight merely delay the inevitable. Mithra and Pyra speak to Rex as he clashes swords with Jin. They beg him to give up on them, to go to Elysium without them, but Rex refuses. He's not afraid of their power, and promises he won't let what happened in the past repeat itself. Testing this claim, they show Rex a vision of Artifice Ion, which has the power to truly destroy all of Allrest. While acknowledging the threat this imposes, he simply asks if Pyra and Mithra love this world. They do, and that's all he needs to take their hands and move forward together. The vision fades, and both Pyra and Mithra awaken in their combined form. Their ultimate form is Pneuma of the Trinity Processor. They grant Rex a new sword and suit of armor fitting of an Aegis driver. This time, Rex is able to match Jin's speed, successfully beating Jin back. As they clash, Rex notices that Jin is in grief, and so he shows his opponent mercy, knowing it will come back to bite him. Malos, having forcibly taken control of Ophion, sicks the artifice on the party. Pneuma's siren defends against the blast, causing the cliffs to crumble beneath them. Rex, his friends, and Jin all fall into the Great Void beneath them. Within the Great Void, at the base of the World Tree, are the lands of Moritha, the ruins of Earth long before Klaus formed the Cloud Sea. Rex and Mithra wake up here and travel the ruins in search of their friends. Pneuma is so strong that it's more efficient to let either Pyra or Mithra take control outside of deadly confrontations. Surprisingly, they find Jin before anyone else. Severely weakened from their former fight, he can barely defend himself from the Guldo creatures that inhabit Moritha. Brigid, Poppy, and Azurda show up to defeat the monster, after which Jin collapses. Taking pity on their enemy, Rex has Mithra heal Jin, and in doing so, she discovers his human heart, the one he consumed from Laura. Reluctantly, the party cooperates with Jin for the time being as they navigate Moritha. Left to themselves, they discuss the struggles between drivers and blades, as well as the human condition that allowed technology to advance to such destructive levels. Their trek takes them through the fallen remains of the Tornin Titan. Within, Jin revises his accusation that Mithra destroyed Torna. In truth, he mostly blames Amalthus and the Praetorium for Torna's downfall. Deeper in, they reunite with Morag, Nia, Tora, and Zeke. At the same time, Akos, Petroka, and Mikhail pilot the Monoceros beneath the Cloud Sea. They've already recovered Malos, and are diving to Mortha to rescue Jin. When they find Jin with Rex's party, they try to attack, but Jin orders them not to fire. Even when Petroka disobeys, he halts the ship to protect them. With Jin on board, the Monoceros takes off, leaving Rex and his friends behind in their race to the World Tree. The Monoceros docks into Torna's larger warship, the Marseilles, and rises above the Cloud Sea. Down below, Ophion has stopped guarding the Great Void, exposing the base of the World Tree. Rex's crew discovers that it isn't a tree at all, but rather a massive elevator. While they travel up the tree from the inside, outside the tree, Amalthus is taking matters into his own hands. Unable to maintain control over Mithra or Malos, he makes his own move toward the World Tree. The Indal Titan approaches the tree with a massive fleet of ships, ether lasers, and infantry. Indal's forces fire upon the Marseilles, which in turn fires back with its cannons and releases more artificial blades called blade bots. Torna's plan is for Malos and Jin to enter the World Tree, while the rest of them stay behind in the Marseilles to repel Amalthus' army. Partway up the elevator, the party steps out to witness the battle taking place around the tree. Amalthus, from his control center, notices Rex ascending the tree and orders him to attack the Marseilles. At this point, the party already knows Amalthus can't be trusted. He's been using people all along, and there's a definite chance he'll prove just as great a threat to humanity as Torna. By refusing to follow Amalthus' orders, Rex is targeted by Indal troops. Addressing the entire party, Amalthus appears as a massive hologram and reveals his ambition as a Blade Eater. While Malos is out of his control, he still inherits power as an Aegis driver, and along with Fen Lenorn's core crystal, he can harness her ability to suppress other blades. He tries to possess Mithra, forcing her to call upon Siren to fire on the Marseilles. Resisting his control, however, she alters the blast so that it only scrapes its target. Because of this, Jin and Malos are successfully delivered to the entrance of the World Tree. The other three remain on board, immune to Amalthus' power due to being blade and flesh eaters. As much as Amalthus relies on his strength as Malos' driver, he underestimates Rex's potential as a fellow Aegis driver. Rex retaliates with a massive beam of light that disrupts Amalthus' blade suppression. While this limits his range, Amalthus can still control the Titans nearby Indal, and uses this to force the Titan Mor Ardain into shooting the World Tree with its cannons. Such an attack cannot be sustained. Mor Ardain is a dying Titan as is, so further blasts will only hasten its death. Emperor Niall fears that Mor Ardain will crumble under its own weight. It's at this point that Mikhail asks Akos and Petroka to go support Jin inside the tree. He will stay behind and deal with Amalthus. As Petroka disembarks, Mikhail confesses his love for her, and she stubbornly tells him not to go dying on her. As its sole pilot, Mikhail transforms the Marseilles into a mechanical titan and further attacks Indal. Morag insists that Rex use this chance to scale the tree, having faith that her brother will protect the people of Mor Ardain. Sure enough, Niall orders the Ardanian people to evacuate. One-on-one, Mikhail is able to confront Amalthus. The Praetor wonders why he cannot control Mikhail, only to discover that Mikhail is one of the very same Blade Eaters he created long ago. His own twisted ambition has come back to haunt him. As the Marseilles smashes into Indal, Mikhail notices that Amalthus started this fight with no plans to evacuate the city's Gormati refugees. Clearly showing no concern for the people of Alrest, Amalthus commands not only Indal and Mor Ardain, but also Genbu. This power of his is being amplified by a vortex sustained by various pillars. Mithra notes that she can destroy these pillars, if only the Titans can stop moving for a moment. Pyra recommends they get closer to Indal and unite as Numa to slow down time. After reaching a dock along the tree, Poppy transports Rex and Mithra closer to Indal. Noticing this, Amalthus orders all of his forces to focus on Rex, but is unable to stop the pillars from falling. In retaliation, he fires a beam from Indal at Rex, but the shot is blocked by Mikhail. Defending the party, Mikhail remarks that while he's grown to hate humanity, Rex's group reminds him of the old Torna, back when he had people that he loved. Recalling Jin and Laura's kindness back then, he remains stoic as the Marseilles is obliterated by a final attack from Amalthus. Inside the tree once more, Jin and Malos approach the summit. Seeing an apparition of Laura makes Jin stop, wanting to settle things with Rex. Malos bids Jin farewell before proceeding onward, demonstrating a genuine concern for his sworn partner. When Rex arrives, Jin admits that, while he sided with Malos, he's curious to know whether the world will allow Rex to win. Even with this sentiment, though, he intends to fight so that Malos can succeed. While he's still weak from his fall to Moritha, he unleashes his true form as a flesh-eater. He and Rex duel while arguing about the future. Jin tries to assert that opening Elysium to humanity will only lead humans to ruin it like they did to Moritha. Rex, on the other hand, believes that by working in tandem with Blades, humans can avoid such a disaster. He feels Blades and humans aren't that different in how they both live on in the memories of others. If anything, he envies Blades and their amazing abilities. Rather than killing the architect, Rex would like to ask him why he made such wonderful people. Jin's conviction is shattered. Having done enough to stall time for Malos, he succumbs to his injuries. By the time Akos and Petroka arrive to help, he tells them they've already done enough. Nonetheless, Petroka wants to save Jin and asks Nia to heal him. As she prepares, Petroka is run through by a blue tendril. Amalthus, in his desperation, has absorbed multiple core crystals to turn himself into a monstrous creature. He justifies his lust for power by citing humanity's inability to avoid warfare. Rex, however, points out the irony in this. As the one who started conflict right after the Aegis War came to an end, Amalthus had every chance to strive for peace. Zeke, who once told Amalthus that killing is a sign of weakness, truly pities what the Praetor has become. In grief over Petroka's death, Akos charges Amalthus, only to be subdued by tendrils. Amalthus rips out Akos' core crystal and discards his blade body to die. Watching this, Jin plans to step up, but Rex promises to handle it so that he can live. Amalthus proves to be a stubborn foe, going so far as to bind himself to the World Tree for leverage. He targets Jin's core crystal, but Rex and Mithra intervene. They suffer a critical injury, so Jin orders Nia to heal them. After telling Nia he let her join Rex because he wanted her to find a driver she could trust, Jin unleashes a blizzard of ice spears that impale Amalthus. Dying, Amalthus curses the architect for abandoning him and takes solace in the glowing vision of his mother. The blizzard used up the rest of Jin's strength as well, causing him to dissolve in a golden light. With his head start, Malos makes his way to Klaus, the architect. Though Malos has come to kill the architect, Klaus confesses that he's currently fading away as it is. He has no intention of stopping Malos from trying to destroy the world he created. Leaving Klaus to rot, Malos instead proceeds to search for Artifice Ion. The top of the World Tree is a space station from which one can see the stars above and the cloud sea below. Lured by the sound of a church bell, the same sound from Pyra's memory of Elysium, the party finally arrives at their destination. What they hoped was a paradise is nothing but a dusty ruin, not unlike Moritha. Among the ruins is a chapel where the bell tolls from. Klaus's voice urges them to proceed, and as the party descends through a passage beneath the chapel, they find themselves separated in a dark void. Rex is forced to confront different versions of his friends, all of whom blame him for getting their hopes up. They blame him for all of their insecurities, causing Rex to run away from it all. As he runs, he finds himself in his home at Fonset Village. Pyra and Mithra greet him, though their personalities seem to have swapped. Confused and emotionally damaged, Rex breaks down, prompting Pyra and Mithra to ask the architect to stop his trial. The rest of the party all went through similar experiences, and Klaus declares that he wanted to use them to test how much humanity has changed. He confesses his sin of destroying the Earth of old, and the futility of trying to atone for that sin by creating Allrest. For the longest time, Klaus has felt that the new humans he created were just as corrupt as the old ones, destined to seek destruction and strife. However, he is proud to declare that, by watching Rex's journey with Pyra and Mithra, he has a newfound hope for humanity's future. Rex's bond with Numa has stimulated the conduit, indicating the world can change. That said, there is little Klaus can do to help. He can sense that the other world created from his mistake, the one that swallowed half his body, is undergoing its own change. His other self in that world is about to be defeated, and with that, he too will disappear. The conduit, which has allowed all of this to transpire, will likely also vanish from the universe. This means that humanity and Blades will have to find a solution together. If Malos activates Ion, however, that hope will be lost. Proceeding to the Ion hangar, Rex's team arrives just in time to find Malos preparing to board the Artifice. Rex asks whether Malos truly wants to destroy the world, or if he's just acting in the shadow of Amalthus's despair. By this point, Malos finds no meaning in such a question. He remains motivated by how Jin lost everything, but was forced to live through that pain. The fact that he and Amalthus caused Jin to suffer in the first place leads him to accept that he's nothing more than a monster destined to cause destruction. Holding to this belief, Malos activates Ion, which in turn unleashes an arsenal of sirens and other artifices to attack Allrest. Rex and his allies fight Malos, keeping Ion restricted to the hangar. Knowing that the artifices are ravaging the world, Rex tries to convince Malos to back down and deactivate Ion. He tells Malos that, despite losing so much, Jin never truly wanted to die. Rather, Jin regretted having to die before he could truly connect with Malos. Insisting on humanity's ability to change, forgive, and move forward through tragedy, Rex and Numa launch their strongest attack yet. It cleaves through Ion and forces it to eject Malos. The artifices all cease attacking, giving way to a brief moment of peace. Malos' core crystal is broken, and his body begins to disappear. Rex wonders if things could have been different if he became Malos' driver instead of Amalthus. Insisting there was only ever one driver for him, Malos comes to terms with his death. As predicted, Klaus and the conduit vanish from Allrest, causing Elysium to collapse. While the upper section, Radamanthus, will go into orbit, the world tree connecting it to Earth will fall to Allrest and destroy it. Numa has a way to prevent this, and instructs Rex and the others to head to a chamber where they can alter the world tree's trajectory. On the way, she asks Poppy and Isorda for a favor. The party crosses a large room, only to find escape pods on the other end. Numa collapses the bridge, trapping the party on the opposite side. She's tricked them into reaching the escape pods, admitting that, to truly save Allrest, Numa plans to sacrifice herself by using the last of Ion's power to break apart the tree. Unable to accept her answer, Rex tries to use his grappling cable to traverse the gap, but it's not long enough. When he begs Poppy to help, she laments that she promised Numa to let this happen. Isorda tells Rex that if he really loves Pyra and Mithra, he'll let them go. Saying goodbye, Numa transfers the rest of her core crystal to Rex, allowing him to live on without her. Reluctantly, Rex follows the plan, escaping from the tree while Numa blasts it with Ion's light. The blast rips apart the escape pod, but with a boost of Numa's power, Isorda once again matures as a Titan and transports the party to safety. In the wake of all this, the Cloud Sea has dissipated, revealing the Earth's vast ocean. The remaining Titans all merge into a collective landmass, forming a continent for the surviving humans and Blades to live upon. This is Klaus's final gift to the world, a future for Rex to prove that people can change. Perhaps part of this miracle, Rex's core crystal lights up, releasing a beam of light from which Pyra and Mithra reincarnate in separate bodies. The party is delighted to reunite with the two Blades, as they lovingly beckon Rex toward them. At long last, prevailing through hundreds and thousands of years of strife and discord, both worlds resulting from Klaus's failed experiment are able to thrive with hope for the future. What that future holds, however, carries the promise of an entirely new story.
Oh, another lively one. Rex, do it like I showed you and we'll be okay.
Oops, that wasn't supposed to happen.
If only I was 500 years younger.
Before I go ahead and roll the credits, I want to give a special shout out to all my $10 and up supporters. Video Gamer 75, C. James Torley, Stephen Elak, Samuel Gersten, Otaku Mom, Jens Ballman, Mystic Samurai 1983, Freebrick, Cosmonaut, RNG or Shuffles 1498, Alexis Yukio Gomez Yamato, Johnny Tsunami, Link Pendrago, Caitlin P., Vladimir Rovna, Succubus Sakura, and SF Giants fan Mike. Thank you all so much. Thanks for watching.
If you enjoy this channel, help us grow by liking, commenting, sharing the video, subscribing to OtakuDaiKun, and
Most of all, smashing that notification bell so you don't miss out on all of our anime discussion, lore, or Let's Play content.
you can support us directly through Patreon, Subscribestar, or our YouTube membership, all of which come with benefits like exclusive vids and early access.
As always,
Celebrate your fandom.